So Brussels watching this very closely.
Well, watching this very closely, and the election itself, of course, when you talk to any diplomat in Brussels and also around the capitals, will tell you the Hungarian election is the election to watch this year. It's the most important, the most consequential, and obviously on Sunday, everyone in this town is going to be monitoring those results. That the U.S. is really now throwing support behind Orban, and yet the approach from the European Union has been the complete opposite, to really do low profile, to not get involved, to not respond, to really not snap back. And you saw in those pictures when you walk around Budapest, the face of Ursula von der Leyen is in posters which sort of portray this as a head of the Commission that is going to destroy Europe, and Viktor Orban is the polar opposite, the man who is going to face her. And still, we've seen very little from the Commission. We also know and have reported this extensively on Euronews that for months now, the Commission has put everything on hold. Major decisions on Hungary, obviously legal procedures are still pending, all of this frozen, not to be used in the election. The one thing, however, that Brussels has been keen on not doing, and is obviously keeping this as the ace, really the leverage that they have over the Hungarians, really truly is the money. Obviously, we've talked about billions of euros that have been frozen. Hungary also applied for a loan to spend money, cash, into weapons, around 17 billion euros. That has been frozen. It's the only country to not have its defense plan approved. And this idea that nothing will move until the election happens. The other point also we should note is that when it comes to the relationship now between Brussels and Budapest, I was there the last time for the election. Obviously, there's been tensions now playing out for years, but this time what really changes is there's a very strong security aspect. Obviously, this is not just about an ideological clash, about the politics, but really now for a number of member states, Hungary now so close to Russia, the tapes, the leaks, the conversations among the foreign ministers of the two countries, that has now really crossed the line, because now you talk about defense and key security capabilities, and that is now seen really as a red line. The one thing I would note just very briefly also is when you talk to diplomats in Brussels, they tell you whichever way this goes, the relationship will have to change. If Magyar wins, obviously that's a new government. If Orban wins, he could lose a lot of seats, and obviously that could translate into perhaps a weaker Orban. So whatever happens on Sunday, something will have to change.
And just briefly, you mentioned Peter Magyar. How does Brussels view him?
You know, it's an interesting one because in a way, they have kept a very calculated distance. Brussels doesn't comment about Peter Magyar. They've also been low profile on that. He obviously does not want to get involved in Brussels, and we've not seen him really in the European institutions, because back in Budapest, one of the attack lines from the Orban government is to say, ultimately, this guy, look, he's just a puppet of Ursula von der Leyen and the political establishment. What is interesting, however, there's been a number of moves that have been seen in Brussels. One is the fact that he says he wants to unlock the cash. If you want to unlock the funding, then it means obviously something is going to have to change in terms of rule of law. The fact that he went to Munich Security Conference, that was also perceived as, look, this could be a Hungary within NATO now that becomes less problematic. And then third, you know, his foreign policy and his advisors around it, they are seen as perhaps more moderate and more pro-European. But as I say, it's both an opportunity, but also an enigma, and a lot of distance for the time being.
OK, we'll keep a close eye on it. And you'll, of course, be in Hungary for that very important election. So